came across a craft that looked like giant Legos. It was probably about 50 feet by about maybe 30, 40 feet width. They were a type of human, more bluish in color and very tall, about 6 or 7 feet. This is a crash. We're not told this thing crashed or shot down. We don't know when we get there. We're there to establish contact, to triage the extraterrestrials, and then triage the craft, triage all the devices that are there.
ET crash retrievals. Now, we've all heard about Roswell and many other UFO crashes. Emery, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me, George.
Have you been on crash retrieval programs?
Yes.
Where?
Well, I was stationed in New Mexico at Kirtland Air Force Base, and that's where one of their main facilities are, that they have these groups of individuals from all around the U.S. that'll fly in depending on their specialty. I was part of a 3-man team that would be going there to evaluate the site, kind of like forensics, like when there's a death and they wall it all off. So the military gets there first, they wall off everything, secure the area, and then we get sent in before anyone else goes there to basically look at all the material in the craft, if there's any bodies, what's safe to touch, what's not. There's many different devices that are put in place. We're many hundreds of yards behind, setting up base camps to, analyze the crash site, make sure it's even safe to approach first. Using all sorts of different special cameras and whatnot to scan the areas with satellites to make sure there's no extraterrestrial biological entities still alive. And if they are still alive, to go in there and treat them first. And since, we were already examining many, many bodies, I was part of that project to distinguish, what type of ET this was, and was it safe to approach. And also, along with the craft and the material that were around there, such as the devices, since a lot of them are consciousness-assisted technologies that are linked biologically to the extraterrestrials. You don't want to, shut a craft off that might be keeping the body alive of the extraterrestrial. So there's a lot of these, it's basically a triage of the area. Is it safe to go? If it is, then other teams come in. We're collecting debris, we're collecting devices, we're collecting bodies, and so forth.
Why do they crash so often?
Well, once any extraterrestrial manifests itself in a 3D, even if they're interdimensional, they still fall under the laws of our 3-dimensional space. So they're not bulletproof, okay? They might be able to outrun us, form a gravity flux field around their craft, and, things happen. They're not perfect either. And things can happen with their craft malfunctioning. Most likely we shot them down, to be honest.
Oh, really?
Yeah, using scalar infotopmetry and energetic beam weapons. So there's a lot of this going on because the governments and corporations don't want anyone to know that these things exist, because if you do prove they exist, then you prove that they didn't get here by gas, coal, and oil. They got here by zero-point energy, free energy.
And we want that energy.
And that's what's, they're going to lose all their money, because then we won't have to pay our electric bills.
What is scalar energy?
Well, scalar infotopmetry has been used for a very long time. I usually don't tell people to read books or promote anyone, but Tom Bearden has a really good book on scalar infotopmetry, if you guys could look that up and get educated on it. But it's a special type of frequency that travels within time and space. So if there's a device, let's say in China, they could easily shoot it through the earth and vaporize just you. They can make, a huge earthquake off the coast there in Asia and create a tsunami. Or they could make a hurricane and have it take out Biloxi. So these weapons are very dangerous. There's only 6 of them that I'm aware of that's documented, and they have been used all the time. Anytime you see a really cataclysmic event, it's usually done by someone intentionally to demonstrate to another country, hey, if you don't give us what we want, we'll wipe you out like we did Sumatra. This was just a test to show you what we're capable of. So, the Japanese Yakuza has one, of course the United States has one, I do believe Brazil. And
Where did we get this technology?
We developed it, and that's also other reverse engineered stuff that we found. So that's the downside of any type of extraterrestrial technology falling in the wrong hands. But don't forget, it also can be used to heal. It also can be used to clean up Fukushima in 20 seconds. So why are we not using this for the betterment of the planet is the question.
When you're on a crash retrieval, what do you see?
Well, I'll give you one example. Came across a craft that looked like giant Legos. It was probably about 50 feet by about maybe 30, 40 feet width, and it was crumbling, and it looked like it was made out of a meteorite, but very metallic, metal-like. It was actually in the ground a little bit. It dug up some soil, and we had approached this craft, and it's already been scanned by the satellites for radiation and other things. We were the first individuals to walk up on it. I've never seen a craft like this in the project, so it was kind of new for me. And it had broken cubits of it all over the place that were glowing, an orange glow, but was not emitting heat or anything.
No smoke, nothing like that?
No, there's no smoke, no dust. There was a lot of debris behind it, a few hundred yards, that was made up of all sorts of extraterrestrial devices and things like that must have fallen out. There were 3 extraterrestrial beings that were there. 2 were dead and 1 was on its way out. And they were a type of human, more bluish in color and very tall, about 6 or 7 feet. And we have to be very careful because the craft, you can still feel like a hum from the craft, and it's still like the craft is still active, operational. We have to be careful that we don't touch something and it explodes at the same time. A lot of these times that we walk up on these situations, the craft is actually trying to keep the body alive. We have experts there also that if we don't know what type of ET is, they try to, do some things with it. One time they brought an extraterrestrial with us that did know the race, and they were trying to resuscitate this extraterrestrial, and they were doing it through the wrong orifice, and there was another orifice around the sternal notch that it actually breathed through, and they were able to resuscitate him. Of course, we're called there because we know the best anatomy of these beings. We understand how everything works.
Sure.
We're familiar also with a lot of the equipment that comes with the beings, and of course their craft. So it's a big, laying out and triaging everything and making sure that, this is safe to touch, this isn't. Let's, air evac this being out immediately. Let's try to save this being. At the same time, we have special devices, and we can tell if moving the being away from the craft could be, deadly for that being.
Do you have an ambulance nearby and stuff like that?
Well, it depends where it's at. If it's near, highways, or, if it's out in the middle of nowhere, they use giant VTOLs and helicopters and a lot of these other things, but there's always some sort of ground team. The state fire department, forestry division, and police departments all have their own protocol for downed aerial UFO craft that, of course, to secure the area. No one can know anything. Don't let any media in until the military gets there. And the military is pretty quick. Within 30 minutes of a downed craft, pretty much anywhere on the planet, it's going to be secured that quickly with a group of very specially trained special forces guys that don't have anything to do with the craft, but they know that's the area they have to, protect before more backup comes, and they get deployed very quickly.
In your circles, have they talked about the Roswell case?
Never. It's kind of like, it's just everyone knows it happened, and it's just sad they don't know about the other one that crashed in Socorro at the same time.
And Cape Girardeau, Missouri,
right, yeah. So there's a lot of these happening, and it's just sad. Like, it's kind of like, it's been beaten up so much that it's hard for some people to believe, some people not to believe because of all the disinformation. And so it's not really talked about in the projects compared to the new stuff that happens every day. That's 10 times more exciting. That even though it is covered up, it is being recorded somewhere. It is going on a database. I do believe one of our G8 countries that's really good at hacking things will soon hack into these things and expose these events.
What about ancient retrievals that go way back even to the biblical times of antiquity? Anything there?
Sure. There's craft being found with ground-penetrating radar all the time, deep within the Earth's crust. And they basically, what they do for these types of situations is they'll scan it with some special technology.
Okay.
And they'll take it, back to the surface, this information, and they'll 3D print the entire ship, even if it's hundreds of feet, or large as the Titanic sometimes. And they'll recreate and 3D print this whole thing and set it up and use that for a couple years, practicing when we breach it and go in and go here and there, and what's this and what's that. And depending on, is it giving off some sort of energy signature we have to be careful of? So there's a lot that goes into it before they start drilling in the ground and going down into these things. Because some of these craft, sometimes we don't understand how it got in granite. How did it get in? Did it just, teletransport to the wrong area and it got stuck, So these things, they take very seriously, and it might take years and years before they actually get into it. And, this is also happening down in Antarctica right now. They found many craft, they found a big civilization,
Underwater city.
Underwater city. That being said, they have to be careful, because depending also where it's at, how many organizations are involved, how many governments are involved, what's the chances of something leaking out. They're really strict on, right now, like who goes down there. Also, they're putting in the disinformation campaign already down there of getting artifacts from, the Mayans and from Egypt, and discombobulate the archaeologists that do go there later on and throw them off a little bit.
Were you sent on retrievals, Emery, because of your medical background?
I was sent on retrievals only because I had experience on classifying extraterrestrials, classifying devices from extraterrestrials, and working on the extraterrestrial crafts. So I was there more to say, this is what I know about this body, this is what I know about this device, this is what I know about this craft. Some extraterrestrials, you can't just go out and touch, you
could contaminate yourself.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's kind of like touching an electric eel. So you got to be really careful, and the science behind all that, with the craft, communicating with the devices, communicating with cybernetic organisms that are there, trying to help heal the craft. They have their own thing going on that we are still learning. Like when our plane crashes, we go out, we have our own protocol. Well, they have a protocol too. And also, is it transmitting anything? Are they sending for help? Are they going to dematerialize right now? So it's kind of being in a triage field, and you're walking in on a very chaotic situation. It's sad too, because you don't know what exactly happened, especially when there's bodies.
Well, I was going to say, have you come across ETs that were still alive but injured?
Yes. Oh, yes. Many times the extraterrestrials are alive, and and sometimes they're communicating telepathically. Sometimes they're speaking in languages we don't understand. And just like you would try to, help someone from a foreign country that just got hit by a car and you don't understand what they're saying, they're in pain, and you're trying to help, It's a very difficult situation to be in when there's a communication problem, because not all of them communicate, through telepathic means or speak English, of course. So, you have to treat it very sensitive, and at the same time, we're really there. We really want to help this being. We want to save this being, and get it back on its feet. But maybe picking it up will kill it too, or maybe separating it from the craft will kill it. And when we know there's these energy signatures happening, sometimes we, they're already preparing to move the craft no matter what. So sometimes we'll put the being back into the craft. We notice that helps a lot by putting the being back in the craft and transporting the beings and the craft all together at once. There's many documented cases where the craft is, trying to heal itself, is trying to form another, shell over the shell. And a lot of these craft are formed by sound in space, and they're infused with consciousness. from the person. So it's kind of like part of the person, actually.
It's alive.
Right, it's alive. The craft is alive.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
It's a biological craft.
It's a biological craft, absolutely.
The Lego-looking craft, was that biological?
Yes, it was.
In your opinion, it was.
Absolutely.
Tell me about contamination and the possibilities that the planet could get contaminated.
You know, the craft are immediately put in these giant bubble-like tents. And what happens is, if there is any sort of like really bad like contamination where
how would you know
it could spread? Well, we have these devices that scan the area with frequencies. Remember I told you about this?
Right.
That has a database of bacteria and viruses and things like this that we have to protect the planet regardless. And there has been times where they will sterilize an area and they will completely vaporize that whole craft just because there might have been, a chemical or a biological agent. That's when they use special energy weapons and other things to vaporize that entire area without causing damage to the surrounding, minimal damage to the environment. It's like a no-fly zone here because we're really evil species. Like anything that comes near our space, we want to shoot it down. So the craft have not been coming so much as they used to in the 50s and 60s, of course, and 40s, because we have now these neutrino light detectors on the satellites that pick up on different wavelengths of energy that we can pinpoint where they're at and shoot them down or vaporize them before they get there. So, and then you have the other extraterrestrials, which are highly advanced, that can just be right outside the door now. You wouldn't even know it in their mothership because it's cloaked and not giving off any energy. So there's many different levels of this technology.
It's truly remarkable how we're able to retrieve these craft. And how many are we talking about? Since how many? 2, 3, 100?
Hundreds.
Hundreds of crashes?
Yeah, hundreds.
And how many do we knock down?
I don't know.
Why would we be so hostile?
We can't allow the American people to know that they exist, because if they do, then, it's going to destroy gas, coal, and oil and big pharma.
So when you get onto the scene and they're alive, what do you do?
Well, I first try to figure out if we, it's a joint thing. There's me and 2 other people, usually the first ones there, that walk up after it's been scanned, after we saw all the data, and if there are, alive ones there, we will approach the beings if it's safe, for us to, and try to communicate first. And after communication is done, and we see if we can offer assistance in any way, we ask questions if the being is able to communicate. First of all, where are you from? How did you get here? And how can we help the rest of your crew? We ask really basic questions that you would see kind of in pop culture, like you would with someone that got in a car accident.
Do you comfort them, the ET?
Of course. I mean, they know we're there being compassionate. They're not drawing weapons or anything like that. This is a crash. We're not told this thing crashed or shot down. We don't know when we get there. We're there to establish contact, to triage the extraterrestrials, and then triage the craft, triage all the devices that are there, because some of the devices are also alive as well. There's a lot of things going on at one point. Before the team comes in, we have to declare this area safe for everyone to come and do what they need to do. And safe just means, you're just not going to walk up and die,
right,
from the electromagnetic fields that still might be on, or the extraterrestrials, if, they're known to carry, different biological strains of things. We've had many bodies that, we worked on, and just like we have like bacteria on our body, that's not friendly. We have staph growing all over our body all the time, but our immune systems are so good, we fight it off. So they also sometimes have, bacteria and viruses and things. So we have to be careful of that. And even though they might be a healthy ET, it's just like it's a contamination issue. It's a biohazard no matter what.
If you like this video and you want to see more amazing content, go ahead and check out the next video on our channel.